Greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and as always, welcome back to our Around the Hearth discussions. This time, we are in August, and we shifted it up a little bit this year. We shifted the horror, surreal type of stuff, Lovecraftian things, from December to August, because it was just a nice alliteration for August Abominations, you know? Just, have to do it sometimes. But that's what we're going to be discussing this time. Specifically, as you've seen in the title, we are going to be discussing Malignant Metropolises. So we're going to be discussing the idea of setting some kind of horror, surreal type of thing in a metropolis, a larger city, or something like that. That's the idea for this first chat. And then we'll go into some other things after that. Before we get into that, you can see it is just myself and Scrat, so I'll do the normal thing of going first, letting Scrat think about what he wants to say, and Dan is supposed to join us a little later, so we will take care of that when he gets here. But I am Adam L. Spain with the Inn of Planar Crossroads. We hope you are enjoying these themed months. I'm trying to think of anything specific we have going on at the moment. I don't think there's anything in August that we need to announce. So keep up with that. You can just keep up with us the normal way. You can see our there we are, web page pulled up. It's got all of the things you need to check around, almost all the things you can check us out on. So you can look there if you'd like to. And that is innofplanarcrossroads.com or theiopc.com. And you can support us on PayPal, Local, Subscribestar. There's a Patreon too. I don't have that button on here, but that's that. And I think that's enough from me so that we can go ahead and get into the chat, because Scrat said he had some questions. So let's go ahead and let Scrat introduce himself.
Well, that's me. I am Scrat from a Squirrel Plays over on YouTube, and I make videos about storytelling and world building and whatnot, whether it's for old-fashioned written stories or your TTRPG, whichever one you happen to be working on. And on the TTRPG side, I get to do the occasional TTRPG review when one makes it my way, and I get time to experiment around with it. As a matter of fact, by the time this video goes out, my next video will be nuts. That's my very own tabletop system. So you'll have finally gotten to see it already by the time this goes live. So, yeah, enjoy that.
Well, see, we might have shouted Scrat out extra this time, but no, he couldn't tell us about that until we got into the chat.
I didn't think about it till now. I always forget these go out later.
All right. Well, maybe in the future we will see some information and some live play stuff with.
I say you got to try it out first before you shout it out. So that's the rule.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure Dan and Jacob would think that was a hoot. So yeah, that'll be a thing. So cool beans. We'll look forward to seeing that from Scrat and Squirrel Plays.
Woo!
And let me see. I got one suggestion for shout out this time, but because I am not familiar with their content yet, we may hold that one off until next time. This time, we're just going to shout out my daughter's channel. It's her hobby channel, KittyNboots. It's got this little cat, the cat from Kiki's Delivery Service as the logo right now. And she makes AMV stuff and things like that. So you can check it out if you want to. Tell her that the Inn of Planar Crossroads sent you. So there you go. She would think that was neat. KittyNboots, if you want to check it out. And that's the only shout out that we have right now. So unless you've got any other announcements that pop into your head, Scrat?
No, don't think so.
All right. That means we can, like you, grab our preferred beverages. And hopefully you'll join us around the hearth. Hopefully a cool stone hearth this time, considering it's August. And discuss with us in the comments for you and here for us Augustine Abominations, Malignant, Metropolises. Skål. Okay. So, we'll do like we usually do. I'll bring up some key points. Dan has some notes for the chat as well. A nice, somewhat spooky choice, Scrat.
Yeah.
There you go. So, like I said, there's some key points from me, and then we'll go into Dan's points that he submitted to us, but did not, he's not here to present himself right at the moment. Alright, so for Malignant Metropolises, there are a lot of the stories that a good at least half or more, probably more, of Lovecraft's fiction happen in cities or around cities. So you're not exactly spoiled for choice, but you do have a lot of choices for that type of setting for horror. One of the ones that is particularly, some of them that are set in cities that would be particularly useful to look at if you're wanting to do an adventure type of thing, would be The Street, is specifically one where a neighborhood takes on its own kind of life and rebels against its inhabitants. It's their short story, though, so it's not going to be a super in-depth thing. You can get through it. I think it's like 15 minutes in an audiobook. Pickman's Model is a very common story to hear about from the Lovecraftian universe, the Yog-Sothian universe, I should say. And it is set in a city, might be something for a one-shot, would probably work with that, or just an adventure hook within another adventure. Dreams in the Witch House makes a particularly interesting one if you're wanting to delve into the surreal and kind of make those back and forth between dream and reality kind of blur. Another one that does that is Nyarlathotep, if you want to blur those lines, and that's like the old one deity there, Nyarlathotep. It's his titled story. And then there's Horror at Red Hook, is good as either a one-shot or a some-shot. It's a good one to look at, especially as it has some hooks and a little bit of mystery in there that you can get inspiration from and then sprinkle that in. It doesn't even have to happen directly as the sole thing in that one-shot or campaign. It can be sprinkled in there. And then one that happens in a very personal way, so this might be a one or two person type of thing, is Cool Air. And it's a personal story between a guy and one of the people in his building. So it all basically happens within this one apartment building. There's some going out to get supplies, but it basically all happens there. And it's a lot of that type of weird science being applied. So that's one that you can look at. As far as stories, some points that I would come to are places that can come alive after years of constantly being dwelt in. That's kind of an idea. Places taking on their own life. Isolation, though surrounded, which is something iterated also by Dan in his notes when we get there. There's a creeping, inevitable corruption is also something that you might look into if you're wanting to do this Malignant Metropolis setting. There's a loss of self to the din of the city. You perhaps become so tied to the city that you are basically just part of the city type of idea. Dreams blurring with reality is always a safe bet with Lovecraft. Perhaps a cursed ancestry, that's a very common thing that happens in Lovecraft. And I want to say, don't be afraid to embrace the modern setting. And a lot of Lovecraft stuff happens in the late 1880s into the he wrote until almost the 1940s before he passed away. So in that time span is when a lot of his stuff happens. But you can come all the way forward and just use weird and surreal things to explain some of technology not working type of situation. So that's a thing to think about. Some notes from Dan. Lovecraftian, the urban ideas he has, playing with the idea of being alone in a crowd, which is that isolation of surrounded idea, seeing things that no one else is reacting to, and everyone thinks you're crazy. Very good to work with. Yeah, that paranoia. Yeah, that's pretty. I like doing that with with players sometimes. Surrounded by strangers, so everyone and anyone could be a danger. So catch a stranger watching you, following you. I've seen this used also in other stories outside of Lovecraft where it's just the paranoia that's getting them, which can be very fun to mess with your players. If they get to be so paranoid that eventually everything's freaking them out, or freaking the character out. It's pretty choice. Lots of places and cover organizations for cults. That is true in the city. You can get a lot of cover, have a lot of things going on that aren't above board, like a classic sewer cult, or a legit operation like a gentleman's club, casino, religious institution as cover for a cult. You can put in lots of political intrigue and candidates with cult connection. That would be very true, especially if you embrace some kind of Mego idea. The Megos from... what is that planet called? It's Pluto, but there's a name for it that they have. Lots of NPCs to utilize. Nothing like abandoned building in the middle of a city being haunted. Lots of possible traps, hazards built into a location. That's especially useful if you pair it with being stuck seeing things that other people aren't. That would be a good one for that Paranoia Institute. So, those are the key points that we had. So we can dive into the actual open chat now. So, Scrat said he had questions, so it might be good to start there.
I just had some more like discussion starters, You bring it out there and you're like, well, what do you guys think about this? So,
okay.
One question would be, what do you consider scarier? The monster is coming, you can see, and maybe even be big bad, monstrous Cthulhu thing, or the one you can't see that's always hiding and lurking and snagging people up?
Yeah. Well, that one, I can speak on that one, at least from a Lovecraft perspective. He has a quote about actually saying, I want to get it right, so I'm looking it up. I don't know that I can do it off the top of my head. The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. So, if you're looking for Lovecraft inspirations, there's your answer. Keeping things unknown. A lot of people will kind of fuss about Lovecraft saying something is undescribable or this or that, but the more you experience in life and are honest with yourself about how strange things can be, it's not that crazy to say, this is just weird. Can't explain it, but it's just weird. Or I can't describe this thing, it's just horrible. So, you can definitely play with that. And let
another one was what are some good sanity mechanics? I've not used any of those.
Some sanity mechanics, which are very useful no matter which type of Lovecraftian thing you're doing. I've seen it a few ways. I think I took my book down to my house, but there's the book I've shouted it out before. It is Into the Weird Wood or something like that. It has some sanity it has mechanics in it, I should say, for going into like a haunted fairy tale type of wood, mythical, very grim fairy tale, but actually grim. You can use things like that one thing that is useful as far as a direct mechanic is borrowing from the Call of Cthulhu. There's some sanity mechanics from that particular TTRPG. Those can be a little bit direct, I guess is the idea, is the word I'm looking for. They can be very direct in what you've got this much and that's it. And then you have to do certain things to recover it. It's a good starting point, I'd say.
Okay.
The trick is, if you're just doing a one-shot, then those type of mechanics work really well. But from what I've seen in people playing Call of Cthulhu, eventually they kind of get a way they like to work that system specifically in a tweaked way when they're doing their own home game. So it's okay to tweak it a little bit for your home games. And it depends if you're wanting to play a Pulp Cthulhu type of setup or a true kind of mystery horror type of Cthulhu. Because Pulp Cthulhu is, as a system, lets you get more sanity back easier. And you're a bit tougher. Your character's a bit more robust. They can take more hits and keep on kicking type of thing. But regular Call of Cthulhu doesn't have as robust and durable of characters.
Have you ever played the video game Don't Starve or Don't Starve Together? Either one.
I've not played it, but I have seen it. I know the game you're talking about.
Yeah, when your sanity starts going down, when nighttime comes along, like shadows will start. I think it's if your sanity gets lower, shadows will start attacking you at night. I could be wrong. They might just do it during the day too if your sanity's that bad. But you're like, things that aren't there, but they hurt you because you're losing it.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely an option. That is an option for Lovecraft stories too, because in Lovecraft stories like From the Beyond, it's not so much that the things that you see aren't there, it's that they don't interact with you. They can't interact with this plane, like a dimensional layer type of situation, where it's kind of layered on top of each other, these dimensions. And the one we exist in, the 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions, however you want to say that, of what we exist in, don't touch and interact with those other layered dimensions unless certain things start to happen. So you can mess with that, you can play with that. It may be real, just not real for everybody.
That could be cool.
Yeah. So, of course, it usually drives people insane in the real, in the universe that exists in. So, it's a trade-off, It's a trade-off. So, on things specific for, did you have questions specific about urban type of city ideas, or?
I did have one, like what you had kind of actually touched on it on the, I guess zone would be the right type of word, or the right word. Like what zones could you play in? And you're talking about in the streets and in warehouses and stuff. And I thought it might be pretty cool if you were down in a subway and you lean towards the unknown monster type of thing and it's snagging folks. But then I had an idea. I was like, it would be really cool. Maybe if you did it right. It might be terrible. Each player controlled a group of people. And basically each person was 1 HP.
Oh.
So they get snagged, that person's gone, and your party, your little group starts losing effectiveness. Like they start losing abilities and stuff as their group dwindles and they're less and less effective. I thought that'd be pretty cool. I don't know, it'd take some work, but there's an idea.
You could use some simple mechanics, or even you could use an RTS, it's not RTS, a tactical role-playing game, like If Worlds Collide or When is that? If Worlds Collide. It's a pretty simple. It's simpler where you can make up your own faction and do wargaming type of stuff. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Wargaming. You can do tactical wargaming type of stuff, but you just borrow it and have less tactical, but still use the squad mechanics. That would work.
Haven't played those. Well, okay, maybe technically I've played one, but you were just controlling a Star Wars battle cruiser. It was cruiser against cruiser.
Oh.
It was pretty fun, but
yeah.
Oh, not that squad level of stuff.
Mm. And you could roll to see who fell to the monster, and that would affect what skills you had left to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And the city does present unique, just as our next chat is on the more rural areas. Just as the rural presents its own things, it's got a lot of easier to isolate type of thing, but the city presents a lot of interesting ones because you do have the basic ones like the warehouse or out in the streets or something, but like the subway that you mentioned, having those public transit areas, I think the word that would best describe it is the liminal spaces, those spaces that you see pictures of on the internet that just like an empty office building. People get kind of eerie in empty buildings, especially buildings that are supposed to have a lot of people in them. Mm-hmm. Things that they're supposed to be filled up, but they're empty. Humans want to fill those up. Yeah. So, well, even what makes it fun is it could be full during the day. Maybe you work there. That would be a really neat thing to do, is if you had everybody working there, they were all part of this. They're just Joe Schmo. They're working in an office and they are doing their basic stuff. And then they kind of start to get drowsy and they nod off. And they wake up and everybody's gone. It's like, everybody's gone. What? I guess I must have. Why didn't they wake me up? Oh man, missed my bus. Now how am I gonna get home? Type thing. So they start to pack up, and then it's like, where is everybody? Really? Like I don't hear the city noise outside. And those type of things for someone who lives in the city all the time, it's like being out in the country and not hearing the frogs in the right time or the crickets. Everything's just so quiet. When you're someone who's lived out in the country and you hear everything get quiet, you start to look for danger. You start to look for bad things because it's not supposed to be quiet. And the same thing could be true for someone living in the city. They don't hear the city noises anymore. They're in a building and it's empty. And them meeting someone in those type of situations, it's actually pretty easy to bring together characters, because if you're on your floor and you're not seeing anyone and you can't hear anyone, and then all of a sudden you hear like someone else calling out down the stairwell or something, well, you want to see who that is. Now you want to meet that person because they're here too, and everything's dark outside the windows, but they want to connect to that other character, that other person. In this case, it'd be another player character. And so you could get a party of people together pretty easily, and now they have to figure out what's up and why are they in this building alone.
Spooky. I've played one. Yeah, it was a homebrew thing. Somebody made their own system, and he ran a spooky-ish type of game. And I died because I cut my finger on a clock hand. I bled out.
You bled out from your finger?
Yeah, it's terrible. It was fun, though. He did a really good job making it spooky. But yeah, I think I took a little bit of damage from something else. And then there was something going on with this clock, and I, for whatever reason, really wanted to move the minute hand on it, and was like, I'm going to shove the hand as hard as I can and cut my finger and I'm dead.
Okay. Or maybe it was a vampire clock.
There you go.
Well,
The rest of the party ran out of the house and left my corpse. It was terrible.
they didn't even have the decency to take you outside, huh?
It was a very spooky house.
Oh. Well, now it's your doom. Something that is worth mentioning when you're doing these is you don't necessarily have to try and freak out your players. You want to freak out the characters. The players can be having fun. And that's part of the spookiness of stuff. That's part of playing spooky games. It's not necessarily that you're trying to make your characters freak out. It's that you're make your players freak out. It's what you're wanting them to experience through playing the character. And so they can experience the fear without being in danger type of situation. It's the same reason we watch spooky movies or action movies or stuff like that. We want the adrenaline or the other emotions to be there without having to actually risk our lives jumping on the bungee cord, That's
a good point. That's one reason I've always said I don't think I'd be good at running a spooky game. I don't think I could make a scene and a setting and everything that is technically scary, but I didn't ever feel like my presentation would ever be spooky and scary. But that's a good point. Just so long as the character is spooked.
Because it's about vicariously feeling that through that character.
That is a very good point.
So on the subject of one of the reasons I mentioned the street as the story that would be good is because it talks about a street in the neighborhood becoming. It's not even sentient. It's just like there's a malice there for all the things that have gone on in the past there. And so you can play with that idea, especially with, is it Roll for Combat that Dan and them have been talking about that has the play as a dungeon thing? I think it is.
Ooh.
You can play as a dungeon and it has like a personification, an avatar that manifests after so many years of it after it becomes sentient, so much happening in it. A similar thing could be done with that. You could play, you wouldn't necessarily have to play it, but there are mechanics in it if you want your players to interact with the literal street of Howard Street or something like that. Just anything. It can be any old street you want. And if it has enough history, if enough has happened there, entire cities could be done this way. And that goes also to the other point of perhaps losing yourself in the city. You can make the city, you could use the dungeon rules to become the city type of thing. This city is actively working against you, not because it's sentient, but just because of all the, whether it's good or bad depending on how you want to do it, it's pushing that forward and manifesting itself in that either malice or aid towards the characters. So kind of goes along with the idea of that you had for the train in our Western idea, that type of soul train.
Oh, yeah. Soul train.
Yeah.
That would be fun. I did have a note here, just asking, like, if you could have your big monster of the game tied to the city somehow, either physically or metaphorically. So, like, that touches on that. He could be making strange things happen in the city itself.
Yep. That is very true. And the rules for it, for the dungeon one, are such that it can be either a player character or not, and you can either have it good or bad or whatever you want. And it does kind of bring up an idea of maybe the spirit of the city, this cultural zeitgeist, the city itself doesn't want this evil that's in it, and it's kind of worked things around that the players have all come together by happenstance in this area where there's this nexus of bad stuff. And now the city's actively guiding and pushing them towards that, like an immune system, using them as its immune system to try and get rid of that. If you want it to be a good city, quote quote good city. If you want it to be a bad city, then just embrace it. So. And then that does bring up the idea that if the entire city is the monster, if the city is the thing, then it doesn't want them to leave either, because they're part of it. They can feed off of that. If it's that bad, kind of emotional or other kind of vampire type city.
Man. Spooky.
Yeah. There's another author, Thomas Ligotti, and he has some dark fiction too, and some of it revolves around city stuff and being in the city, and it's still being creepy in the city. And I guess let me see, what time are we at? We're probably pretty close to our stop time. So let's catch final thoughts. I've got mine ready. Do you want time to think about yours, or do you want to?
I got one too. If you want to flip a coin, or
no, I go so often. So I'll let you go first.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, here's your comment for the evening. Can be cult graffiti. There you go.
Oh, all right. That is the comment. That's pretty good. Cult graffiti.
So, I guess my little final note here is, and I promise I'll make a point, one of my favorite things in Fallout games is the use of real world, what's the word I'm looking for? Folklore.
Mm-hmm.
High or tall tales, things we make up. Like in Fallout 76, they lean into the Mothman really heavy because I believe it's local to where that game takes place in the real world. That's where that originated from. Mm-hmm. So I feel like if you're doing this kind of setting, you're probably in the real world. Don't have to be, I guess. But if you are, I feel like it'd be super duper cool if you could bring in real world tall tales or whatever you want to call them and use them. That way people are kind of familiar with them. Like the first season of Supernatural did a whole lot. They kept taking, I don't know what you call it, air quote, real ghost stories. Yeah. However you want to say that. But that was one thing I really liked about that at the beginning of that show, was using stories we have heard and then doing a fun spin on them and trying to make them look real and stuff. So that would be fun. I've never done a TTRPG in a real setting, either run or play, so I don't have a lot of experience in that. It's always been fantastical worlds and stuff.
Oh, you gotta try it out sometimes. You get free maps and everything.
That's true. That's what I keep hearing. I know where my wife worked at her last job, somebody she worked with was running a campaign, and the campaign, I think the undead were trying to bring back Elvis, so the whole game took place in Memphis, and he had the whole map and layout of Graceland because they all worked for Memphis, the city, well, not the city of Memphis, but like the tourism side of it. So they knew all about that stuff. So.
Oh, I was gonna say they had to involve Graceland in that somewhere.
Yeah, they did.
Secret necromantic cult trying to resurrect Elvis.
Yeah. Oh. I think the BBEG was Elvis. So.
Hard to beat that kind of stuff from TTRPGs.
Yeah, but he was. I remember him talking briefly. I only met him for a little bit, and he was briefly talking about how he, Never had to make a single map. Just get on Google Maps and there you go.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I did when I did. But yeah. So that is a good point. Messing around with that. And now let me see, what was the initiating point you had there? Because I thought of something while you were doing it.
For the final thought or when we first started?
For the final thought.
Oh, using real world folklore.
The folklore.
Tales. Yeah.
That's what it was. So like cryptids
Yeah.
and stuff like that. You know, playing through modern, pseudo-modern iterations of old things with the Jersey Devil, or bringing back the Headless Horseman in a certain way. That would be fun for like kind of a Halloween one-shot or something. So, and it can all happen in the city if you wanted to. My final thought is that I want to go back to that embrace the modern thing, because we can get kind of spooked dealing with spooky stuff in a modern setting because we're like, oh, they just take out their phone and photograph it. Well, the good thing about especially the Cthulhu mythos is that it talks a lot about dimensional, like time space not being quite right in certain ways if you do these certain things. Quantum physics was starting to come about during that time period, so there was a lot of ideas around that. People still have ideas around quantum physics. And you have this ability to blur that more than a lot of people might think. So if you can just whip out your phone and record something, well, what if it doesn't record? What if you literally can't see it on the phone? Or what if the phone is the only way you see it? And now we're actually in a sweet spot for these kind of stories because we have AI images. We actually are in a really sweet spot for twisting that and saying, well, you don't know if it's true. What if you post online that you're being attacked by this thing, please help. And they're like, oh, this is just somebody posting for this stuff. That's an AI image. Boo. And you literally can't get help because people think you're just doing some kind of prank. I mean, that's an interesting way to twist that helplessness, is that no one believes you, not because you're not showing them, but because they're just too jaded with the images. They just don't believe you. It's not that they can't see it, it's that they just don't believe you. So
that make your sanity meter to go way down.
Yeah. So that's, I think that's the only upside I see to AI emergence and AI video and stuff like that. So there you go. You can have a lot of interesting things happen with this modern setting that we now live in. You could show people evidence till you were blue in the face, and they still wouldn't believe you. And imagine if the villain of the story didn't care if you took pictures of him, didn't care if you did all that, because they just won't believe you.
See, I was gonna ask if you could have a digital Lovecraftian monster of some sort if you played in a modern setting.
Supposedly, like, AI is a monster, so you could do that. Especially if you feed it, if you feed an algorithm on Lovecraftian lore and then have it somehow start to internalize that. They can't really do that, but you know what I mean. You know, in the story, it starts to behave as if it is that thing. It could be pretty wicked. So
have all like the cameras following you as you walk through the city and everything.
Oh yeah,
keeping an eye on you. So you mix that with the monster being part of the city.
Mm-hmm. There actually was, now that I'm thinking about it, Seth Skorkowski's channel
I just heard about him yesterday.
Yeah, he's pretty big. He does a lot of pretty cool content. He highlighted, it must have been at least 2 years ago now, a Call of Cthulhu actual TTRPG adventure that takes place in the modern times and uses social media and stuff like that in the game. In the game you're using social media and other stuff as part of the game. So there is a kind of template for that out there right now. So there you go. Also, when you embrace the modern, you can do AR type of stuff with your players. Like you can create a fake Facebook account for one of the characters or something. Or you make a fake, depending on how much you want to do, you can make a fake web page or something like that. But you can do those fake things online, and it can actually add to the mystery. You can trickle clues out during the week, or however much often you play. If you only play once a month, you could trickle stuff out each week, and people could check on it and be like, oh, this just dropped in the Facebook or something, or the Twitter or whatever.
We found Cthulhu's Reddit account.
It's just all repost from 4chan or something like that. I don't know. All right.
Cthulhu left Reddit. He found the real monster.
All right. I think that's everything this time. We're going to do homely horrors next time, talking more about those rural areas, those more homegrown horrors. So, stick around for that next time. But for this time, we hope you have enjoyed. This time it has been myself, Adam, with Ian of Planar Crossroads and the Gentle Voice Ministries. You can check those out on YouTube or Rumble. It has been a Scrat from A Squirrel Plays as well. And we highlighted KittyNboots, which is my daughter's YouTube. So you can tell her hi. I think that's everything. As always, have a great day. God bless. Enjoy. And remember, that is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange aeons even death may die. Bye.
This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
Okie dokie.
So that's Twilight Zone soundboard.
Twilight Zone does have several episodes that are actually kind of Cthulhuan, what was it? Yog-Sothian or whatever it is. Lovecraftian in nature. So, and there's some pretty cool. I guess one of these times we'll have to do an item-focused chat where we talk about different cool things from fiction to bring and how to kind of bring them into tabletop. That might be something we have to do sometime.
Yeah, see, I got that big old list of items I made when I misread the thing. Didn't know you were talking about actual physical table props. It's one of those things for the rest of my life that, when you're laying in bed trying to go to sleep, you think of. You're like, man, that really dumb thing I did.
Well, it'll pay off when we do that chat.
Yeah.